Wow, look at that.
It
We're
seems to have
live.
stuck. Okay, we are live. Thank you, everyone, and welcome back to today's LinkedIn Live. Thank you for being patient with us. We had a few issues trying to get on the stream today, but we are here. I'm Sheldon, part of the team here at Utopia Experience, where we produce conferences and galas all over the country. But more than just running events, we're obsessed with studying them, figuring out, what works, what flops, what makes people light up, what makes them check out, and that's exactly why we're here today. We're bringing in some of the sharpest minds in the event world, people who live and breathe events, just like you, the people who are watching. Because let's be real, we all have this vault of knowledge, and sometimes one little tweak, one unexpected insight, it can change everything. So here I'm here today to help guide the conversation between these two. Keep an eye on any of your questions in the chat and make sure we pull out all the best insights for you. So please, whether you're here watching live or you're watching after the fact, leave your comments in the chat and we'll do our best to get answers for all those questions. We're keeping this short and packed with takeaways, no fluff, just 20 minutes of very real insights. So whether you're tuning in on a work break, treadmill walk, or something else, let's just dive in for you.
Bio break.
Today's conversation, or a bio break as well. Today's topic is called More Than a Conference, How to Spark Better Conversations. And leading today's conversation is Joey Goon, president of Utopia Experience. And we're joined today by Matt Homann, the founder of Filament and the inventor of Thanksgiving. He's on a mission to reinvent meetings in a way that helps people think together better and get real work done. With years of experience designing and facilitating meetings for companies and organizations of all kinds, Matt knows what it takes to turn an average event into a space for real connection and innovation. Matt, thank you for being here.
Oh, glad to be here. I just feel bad that the people aren't hearing the 10 minutes of incredible genius we all shared as we were trying to log on to this live stream.
So true.
Apologies, that stuff may never come back.
In that time, there was a tremendous amount of caffeine consumed. So this is going to be a supercharged episode.
Yes, and we're very excited for it. And as always, I'll be here moderating. I'll be in the chat watching everything, but I'm going to pop back into the green room. And Joey, I'll let you take it away. And please, let's dive into this conversation.
Yeah. Matt, thanks for being here, man.
Oh, happy to.
So at Utopia, as we talked about earlier this week when we came into your office, you were helping me with a facilitation that I'm leading later, next month. And the brilliance that you have in your mind when it comes to facilitation of the things that like even we as event planners and organizers don't think about is pretty remarkable. And I think that so many people can learn from you. One of the things that we talk about or mention to you is the 3 C's. The importance of bringing in, content being the first C, which is the foundation of any great event. Second C being connection, and that attendees don't just come for the speakers, they come for each other. And then the third and most important C being community, which is ultimately what keeps people coming. It's like they come for the first 2 C's, they come back for community. And so, Matt, it was facilitated based approaches that originally gave us this like aha, which was, keynote speakers and facilitators can commingle. They can partner together. They could be the perfect pair, like peanut butter and jelly. And so anyway, I want to get your take on that, because I think there are a lot of conference organizers out there who have largely relied on like a celebrity keynote speaker to draw in an audience. And maybe you could distinguish the difference between keynote speaking and facilitation and why they both can either coexist, or why you feel one might be a better case for support for a conference than the other.
The thing, and I have a strong opinion on this for a reason, and it's a bit of the nail to my hammer, but we used to, when conferences existed early on, the only place to find fresh content was a conference. It was where your peers were, but more importantly, it was where you were going to find that stuff that was months, if not years ahead of that book being published or the magazine article being written. And now content is everywhere. Some of it not even created by humans anymore. But this idea that the great insights live on YouTube, I can follow someone on, and I'm not going to even say X, on Blue Sky. I can read their blog. I can watch their TikTok. Content feels of those 3 pillars the thing that becomes less and less and less important as we continue to evolve in this space. And so I've always thought that a really great keynote speaker can do some things that are magical in the room. But most audiences have, or most events have, one of those and then a bunch of amateur people reading slides. And so where I think about this model from our perspective is that if you have people together, if it's a place where they're with their peers, might be the only time all year they get to be hanging with people who get them, their challenges, their frustrations, their opportunities, their insights, is how do you do in the room things you have to be together to do? And again, not to poo-poo the most amazing keynote speakers, because there's an energy that ripples through the room when someone nails it. And you're changed in that moment. But that is such a small part of most conferences and events, and the rest is amateur hour. And so how do you think about putting your people together, the ones who've paid to be there, and to let them think together, learn, engage? Because not only do they walk out with insights from people who are just like them versus Tony Robbins on the stage. I'm not freaking never going to be Tony Robbins, but that person who does what I do, who's two tables over, man, I'd love to learn from them. And really great facilitation with some intention around process can drive the insights coming from your audience versus you feeling as an event producer that your job is just to deliver those insights to them.
Yeah.
It also turns them into an engine for further content, for further ideas, for finding your event to be indispensable, because it's where they learn from someone and you'll get all the credit.
So good. You mentioned Tony Robbins. He talks a lot about this. He talks about, like, we don't learn from information, we learn from integration. And so one of the first events that I was ever at that was facilitated, they had keynote speakers. And then there were active learning cycles after the keynote speakers. So a keynote speaker goes on stage, then facilitator comes on and says, hey, what's the one thing you're taking away? What's the one aha? And then they had us think about that, reflect on it for 90 seconds, then turn to a partner. And then there were report outs where we were sharing one ahas sort of with the entire ecosystem, so that if I'm a vault of knowledge and I share one idea, maybe the other, it unlocks something else in the person that's, 4 rows over from me or whatever. So like there's facilitation like that, but then there's entire, which is kind of what we would call like active learning cycle or bookend facilitation. I don't know if you call it something different, but then you also have full experience design, which is like soup to nuts facilitation, which I know you're flying out to Denver tomorrow to do exactly that for a massive association conference. Can you talk about maybe the different types of facilitation, how people could just dip their toe in the water with facilitation or fully dive into the deep end?
So yeah, I'll give you kind of two models that, like, at either end of the spectrum. The one that and there are reasons why, like when we talk about speakers, one of the challenge with speakers, and this is what I hate about the TED Talk model, is that it is amazing speaker break, speaker break. And your mind doesn't have a chance to process what you've heard. It turns to mush by the end of a day like that. And so what I prefer is, if you must have a keynote speaker, instead of taking that hour and letting them talk the whole time, give them 20 minutes. And in that 20 minutes, hit the high points. Give me the greatest hits. Give me the things that are tailored just to this audience. And then after that, and people ideally are at round tables versus sitting in auditorium style, for the next 5 minutes, you ask the room to be silent and let everyone reflect on what they just heard. This feeds the introverts. It feels like a minute to them. It feels like 30 minutes to us extroverts. But giving them a framework, giving them a tool, giving something to capture the reflection, doodle to something they wish they'd heard, something they liked a lot. And then the tables have conversations. So for the next 20 minutes or so, the table's having a conversation. What did I like? And in the meantime, they're connecting, they're networking, they're processing, they're putting into action the ideas they just heard. And sometimes it's the moment where the emperor has no clothes, where you think you're the only one who was curious about this or questioned that. And then finally, and this is my favorite part, is that you make 15 minutes of time at the end in this hour chunk for a table to ask a question. So you don't get the individual who's trying to look smart in front of an audience and ask that and give that statement with a little bit of inflection at the end, pretending it's a question. Our table would like to know this. And if you must do a keynote, and there's a lot, like I said, there's lots of reasons, that's a fun way to frame it. It works with panels if you want to do 3 5-minute talks and then this model, but people start to engage and connect even in those ostensible content delivery portions of the program. The other end of the spectrum, and we don't have a good name for it, but we want to think about the problems or the challenges an organization has. So this work I'm doing in Denver, we're out there for 2 things. We'll do some stuff at the Commodity Classic, and then I'm working with NASA and a handful of their scientists engaging with farmers around satellite data. So super nerdy in the coolest possible way, something that I don't understand anything about, but I don't have to, because we've built frameworks, we've built tools to allow them to have the conversations in small groups around what should our priorities be, how might we think differently about our science, how might we get farmers on board to participate in these programs. And then we have probably 100 or more of these frameworks, and you've seen some of them, Joey, where we'll literally put people into small groups and say, for the next 30 minutes or so, have this conversation. People's compulsion to follow directions overcomes their reluctance to share. So even the introverts in smaller groups feel that they have permission to engage and share. And then the group comes back, and now each group shares their insights. So you don't have to worry about that person being nervous standing up with their boss on the other side of the room saying something. It's what the group talked about.
Yeah.
And as a rinse and repeat model, you can do that for 3 days. But even for a day, the day speeds by. Every time you have a different conversation, tables mix. So you're not stuck with the same people the whole day. And you connect better when you think together versus when you just drink together. And so there are ways to build facilitation into nearly every event that people love, because it's like, oh my goodness, I got to learn something, but I got to use it almost immediately. And probably most importantly, I realize there's a lot of people here that will help me or be of service to me moving forward that I would have otherwise never met had we not bumped into one another in the hallway.
That's so good. So good. Matt, one of the things we talk about, I mentioned this a couple of days ago when we were meeting at your office, and like, no, I'm not a neuroscientist. I'm not a PhD doctor that studies and researches psychological safety and neuroscience, but
I'm playing one on this live stream is what you're about to say, right?
Yeah, but I'm going to play, but here I am. I saved a bunch of money on my car insurance yesterday, and now I'm a doctor of neuroscience.
That's right.
Neuroscience. No, but so we've learned from different groups of, scientists and researchers and doctors from different mastermind communities. And one of the things we understand about neuroscience is like, and this is just simple, like it doesn't have to be highbrow, high-minded. It's just like, let me just give you one small example. When someone walks into an event, they're asking some version of the following 2 questions. Am I safe? Do I belong? Because we're all stressed out. There's airport delays, there's travel, baggage lost, your airline gets canceled, whatever it is. It's just like you're coming with this energy. You're leaving your family, you're leaving your business, you're going to do this thing. And so our intent or our goal when people walk into the venue is to sort of disarm that defensive mechanism of survival brain and get them into a woo-saw, like I made it. I know that I'm at the right hotel because there's signage in the lobby and it tells me so. There are TV screens with a little video, and this is really cool. You'd get a kick out of this. And, if you're watching, this is a really interesting sponsorship idea that you might want to lean into. Think of a sponsor. So like a TV screen in the lobby, you scan a QR code. Instead of putting your sponsor on a piece of paper that's going to get tossed in the trash, this was a sponsorship that maybe one you can consider, where a sponsor had a video and was like, hey, by the way, you scan the QR code in the lobby. This is awesome. Go get registered. Go check in. And by the way, my company bought 10-minute massages for every single attendee at this conference. So for the next 6 hours up until the welcome reception, have a massage, go and relax, go chill on us. And this sponsor, they became a celebrity at the place because that's just such a novel and innovative idea in a way to sort of bake in a sponsorship package to an event conference sort of offering, if you will. And so then those people go to you, Matt, say you're facilitating the conference, they're relaxed. They feel supported. They've been offered something that they don't have, they probably have never gotten before at another event. So like, that's one way that we're thinking of, like, how do we get them in the right headspace so that when they go into the main session later on, they're ready for connection. They're ready for the community building, all the things. From your perspective, from a facilitation standpoint, what are the ways that you can, so people are coming into the space, how do you disarm that tension or that energy and create the physiology shift to get people into that headspace and mindset of ready to learn and ready to go?
Before I answer that, I think if you are a potential sponsor, if you can find a way to sponsor 2 hours earlier check-in versus a 3 p.m. check-in, or 2 hours later check out in exchange for them watching a video or whatever, I'll buy from you. I think about that pain. But from a psychological safety standpoint, what we want to do is we want to trigger at the very beginning that the event with us is going to be novel and different. And that doesn't make them feel safe, but it disarms them in the sense that they think they know what to expect. Because let's be frank, nearly every conference and event looks almost exactly the same. And event planners have been filling out the same grids with the exact same things for conferences for 25 years. Well, we know we have a keynote, then we know we have these panels, and we know we have this and this and this. And so one thing we'll do is we'll draw. We have artists who draw in all of our sessions. We don't use PowerPoint in our work at all, which freaks people out a little bit. But the moment I say there won't be any PowerPoints today, people applaud. It's kind of cool to have 500 people applaud and almost stand up when you say, hey, I'm sorry, we're not using PowerPoint. But mostly it's the fact that I now have something different to do. The event doesn't begin at 9. It begins the moment at 8:30 you start to walk in the room, and there's conversation cards on the table, and there's someone walking around and welcoming you, and there's a chance to put Post-it notes up and answer questions and have those things being drawn. For me, it's less about making them feel comfortable and more signaling to them that this is going to be different from what they expect.
Mm. Yeah, you have an exercise, the I wonder, I wish, I worry. Could you share that one?
Yeah, so we'll do this. It's a little half-page card we use. And in a room full, especially if there's, you can do this at big rounds, but even in a small room, we'll set their expectations by asking them a question like, as I think about this event, or as I think about the future of our industry. And the 3 prompts are, I wish we would, I wonder if we could, and I worry that we won't. And everyone fills it out because people's compulsion to follow directions overcomes their reluctance to share. I know I mentioned that a lot, but it's true that he's like, here's your instructions. Oh my goodness, I'm a rule follower. Let me follow it. And then what you do at rounds is you have everyone share. You can call out a couple. Hey, please read one of yours, and then pick a table, and we'll pick someone there at random to read theirs. But the most value there isn't just the conversation, but it's okay to say you worry about something. That's a very rich vein to mine oftentimes, because we're oftentimes thinking we're just more optimists, have to be optimistic about everything. But then you collect the cards. And so in a room full of 1,000 people, you have a sentiment analysis and a survey of what they think the state of the industry is in a way that I guarantee you is dramatically more effective than any survey you've sent them pre-conference, because most of them won't fill it out or kind of pay partial attention to it. So that's just a super simple thing. But again, that little card, it makes them think in silence before they share, versus me asking someone, hey, anyone in this 1,000-person room want to raise their hand and tell me this?
Love it. Yeah, I mean, these concepts over the last couple of minutes have really been about, from the sponsorship thing, which I love your idea, by the way, paying for people to get access to the rooms early or check out late, to the sponsor who's, by the way, would you take the massage if someone sponsored massage sessions?
It depends on what they make me do for it. I've always thought if they made me do it, they should put a little screen on the bottom, so when my head is down on the massage thing, I've got to watch
another sponsor.
I've got to watch their ad.
That's hilarious.
But that I totally do that, right? It depends, but you've got to catch it the right way and ensure people that it's not
it's not a sales pitch.
Yeah, it's not a pitch to, God, this is the worst pitch ever. Make this massage end early.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, but all these sort of, these different ideas are all about warming up a cold audience. And that in and of itself is the psychological safety, the physiology shift of like ensuring that the audience is warmed up, because when you're warmed up, you're more likely to lean in and you're more likely to learn. You mentioned a moment ago, just a small thing you mentioned was, maybe a conference of 1,000 different people going through that exercise together. Matt, how does facilitation change for a group of, or not change for a group of, a conference from a couple hundred people all the way up to, thousands of people in a room?
So the way it changes, both in a positive and a negative way, is that the smaller the room, the more belief that everyone should have a chance to talk and they'll all be listened to by the rest of the room, right? And there's a handful of extroverts who always think they're going to stand up and raise their hand and be seen. When you get to 1,000, frankly, when you get to about 200 people and more, that goes out the window. The cool part about it is that the bigger the room gets, you can do the same exercises, but have different topics for each. So again, we use these tool sheets that look like big 11 by 17 worksheets. And in a room full of 1,000 people, you might have 10 different scenarios they're playing out at 10 tables a piece, each talking about these scenarios. So the bigger the room, you're oftentimes able to, with the same amount of time, drive more conversations and generate more learning. Where we've really loved it is when you have a big conference and you're able to pull these insights from these tools. We scan them and use AI to read their terrible handwriting. The amount of data and insight you get, like you can turn that into a white paper inside of a week. And all of a sudden now you've used your conference to not only highlight the things that people shared in the room, but to drive additional content that becomes thought pieces that become the FOMO report outs of the event, or become the thought leadership that you didn't need to pay an expert consultancy to deliver.
What are some of the softwares that you recommend? Someone asked a question. What are some of the softwares that you recommend at events, like Mentimeter, or are you doing word clouds, or how are you capturing beyond like physical? Are you using? You mentioned physical like workbooks and big sheets of paper. Are you also using? You mentioned after the fact you're using AI to sort of process all of that information. But what else might organizers might consider using at their conference in the way of like software itself?
I don't use any of it. Occasionally I'll have a slide up just that shows the instructions if the room's big enough that I know that I'll have a percentage of them not paying attention. My biggest worry is the moment you encourage people to use their phone in any way in an event, you've lost them for 10 minutes at a minimum. And so if I say, and I love the idea of the word clouds, the Mentimeters. I love that, but I struggle. My computer just died for a second. I struggle to see
You're still here.
The trade-off of the moment you're on your phone, you get the text from your spouse who's at home. The risk is so high to lose people. Using some of those tools that are clickers where they're not on their phone works, but everybody's moving everything to the phone, and I just get nervous about that.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. What else do you want to unpack? What have we not talked about? We just have a couple minutes left on the live. What have we not talked about that you think is critical for conference organizers and event producers to consider?
So this is a soapbox for me, and to the extent there are event planners on this list, event planners have abdicated so much of their responsibility when it comes to doing the cool things to an event. Right? You build this amazing box for the event. The technology looks great. The video is incredible. The cookies are warm. The coffee's hot. The lunch is amazing. And then you let people pour their same crappy meetings inside this beautiful box that you've built. And oftentimes in organizations, those people who are planning the content are volunteers. They're on a board. They meet once or twice, and they pick their friends. And so I think what I would love to see is some way for event planners to take the power back and at least find some ways to innovate. My favorite, and we've pitched this a handful of times, is what does a lab track look like at your conference, where you at least experiment at that event with a parallel track, even if the content is the same, with alternative delivery mechanisms, and you test it. You make it FOMO, you make it hard for people to otherwise sign up for it. They've got to give additional data. They have a special badge, but to get people to find simpler ways to experiment inside events so you have proof points as you reimagine the entire thing, that'd be my advice. Because again, event planners aren't often asked enough, how do I make my terrible speeches better? It's how do I make the room nicer?
Love it. Anything else on your heart that you want to share?
I think that's it.
Cool. Sheldon, kicking it back over to you, man. What did we miss?
Miss, I don't know. I feel like you covered so much and great things. Matt, thank you for your insights. Getting a little snippet of your I wish, I wonder, I worry is really fantastic, and getting people to rethink the idea of the speaker has an entire hour up there. Should you be speaking for an entire hour, or is that hour better spent dividing it up? I think you gave some really interesting ways for people to rethink what they can do at conferences, big or small rooms. I really appreciate you coming on today. And we have only one, I think, final follow-up question for you, Matt. Something we're starting to ask all of our guests. We know, the event space is a very busy one. So what is your coffee order? What keeps you energized and going? Mountain Dew?
Mountain Dew and champagne.
I am somehow not a coffee drinker, even though I look like one. So that's why Joey's always asked, what's your coffee order? I'm like, nothing. I'm sorry. You don't need to bring me anything.
So Mountain Dew, though, is that your strict, you stick to that one?
Diet Mountain Dew, that's the key. The regular stuff's terrible. The diet is the exact same color as your background.
That's true.
And that's the color that turns your insides.
100%.
Well, Matt, again, thank you so much for joining us today. And for everyone else who's watching this, Joey mentioned one of the comments that got dropped that he responded to. And for the rest of you, if you have a comment, go ahead and leave it here, whether you're watching on LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube. And we'll do our best to tag Joey and Matt so that they can see your comment and find a way to connect with you. And then I'm also right now going to put up some stuff. If you would like to connect with Matt, here's some information at the bottom of the screen. Idea surplus disorder to join his newsletter. And then if you would like to follow Joey, his LinkedIn page will now be going across the bottom of the screen, and you can also visit our website. And I'm also going to put these in the chats for all of those pages as well, so that you can find us after the fact. But again, Matt, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been a fantastic conversation.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Matt. Appreciate it. Safe travels to Colorado.
Thanks.
All right. And we'll see you all next time here on LinkedIn Live.
Bye-bye.